fabrication discovered within his stories. And today, news and photo editors and producers have even fewer personnel than ever before, and fewer tools at their disposal, and often rely simply on experience and instinct. As a result, the most skilled photo manipulations can be difficult to catch. Fake photography or photo fraud is actually broken down into 4 categories. In the first one, digitally manipulating images after the photos were taken. So in the case of using Photoshop or other methods, manipulating the image after you had taken an actual image. Number 2, staging or photographing scenes and presenting the images as if they were authentic, spontaneous events. In this particular case, I've got a series of 4 pictures of this same woman. These were published in Reuters or on Reuters news websites. And this woman is seen walking in front of the devastation of her community. Here's the same woman again at a different location. Again, it was stated that this was her home behind her that was destroyed. Here she is again. And here she is again. Every instance, she was in a different locale, different community, and each one said that she was so devastated. This was her loss of her families and her whole livelihood. These are all staged. But also the New York Times got duped. And again, this is a while back. Turmoil in the Mideast. In this particular case, I'd like you to take a look at the gentleman on the right with the hat put on backwards. So this picture looks real enough. And frankly it is, except for the staging, having somebody pose. If we take a look again here, here's the man in another scene, a completely different location. Here he is again. You recognize the hat on backwards, and if you were able to notice khaki pants before, you can still notice those, or military or army pants. Here's the same man playing dead. He's not dead. He didn't die, but these were staged and literally were published for everyone to see. Photographers themselves can stage scenes. The first one is digitally manipulating images after the photos are taken. The second one is manipulating the photos by staging. And another is staging scenes by moving objects around. In this particular case, we have a very effective photo showing the devastation of what can happen to children, or maybe loss of life in this particular case. The little teddy bear in the foreground. Here's Mickey Mouse in the foreground. Very much a moving kind of photo, moving kind of picture. Here's Minnie Mouse. What gives these away are that the dolls are flawless. They are clean, they're not torn up, they're not damaged by all of the devastation. They're as if they've just been purchased out of Toys R Us, another store. So again, this is another instance where we have to concern ourselves. In this case, photographers staging scenes or moving objects and presenting photos of setups as if they were naturally occurring. And number 4 would be giving false or misleading captions or writing information to otherwise real photos that were taken at a different place and a different time. But many photo editors say that outright attempts to falsify images are actually rare. Mr. Hodge was caught manipulating his work when his motivations were political in nature. But even photographers without apparent political motivations can get into trouble for using Photoshop. The National Observer, or I'm sorry, the Charlotte Observer, a newspaper in North Carolina in America, 3 years ago dismissed a photographer for changing the color of the sky. So in some cases, it almost goes the opposite way. Something as small or minor as enhancing or changing the color of the sky could get, in some markets, could get you fired. In 1995, MIT technologist and specialist Nicholas Negroponte predicted the emergence of the Daily Me, a newspaper that you designed personally with each component carefully screened and chosen in advance. The term has also been associated with the phenomenon of individuals customizing and personalizing their news feeds, resulting in their being exposed only to content they are already inclined to agree with. The daily me can thus be a critical component of the echo chamber effect, which is defined in an article in Salon by David Weinberger. He referred to it as, quote, those internet spaces where like-minded people listen only to those people who already agree with them. With the increasing range of communications options, Negroponte's prediction has come true in the website dailyme.com, which is the few clicks you can find dozens of websites to show you that you are right, and right to like what you already like, and to think what you already think. If you want to read essays arguing that your preferred political positions are the right ones, the technology is available to allow you to do exactly that. The world of communications now contains innumerable comfort spaces in which people can reinforce their own convictions. Some members of the news media contribute to this problem, including some who are recognized as journalists. Not only online, but in the print and broadcast media, there are some who self-consciously conceive of themselves as being part of a conservative or liberal outlet. Fox News Channel, MSNBC are such examples in the United States. But this method of self-sorting is nothing new. Long before the internet, newspapers and magazines were often defined in political terms, and many people would flock to those with compatible points of view. But there's a big difference between a good daily newspaper and the Daily Me. The difference lies in the dramatic increase in the power to fence in or to fence out information. Most newspapers and most responsible editors include material to expose people to topics and to points of view that they would not have chosen in advance. But as a result of new technologies and increasing options, we live increasingly in an era of market specialization. Wikipedia has emerged as the largest example of participatory journalism to date, facilitating communication among users editing articles, all working toward maintaining a, quote, neutral point of view. The most obvious differences between traditional journalism and participatory journalism are the structures and the organizations that produce them. Traditional media focuses on profits derived from advertising. They value rigorous workflow, profitability, and integrity. Networked communities that value conversation, collaboration, and social equality over profitability create participatory journalism. Proponents call for a radical change in professional journalism in order to meet the principles of citizen-generated media. Author Steve Paulison of Ghent University argues that professional journalists will increasingly have to share their control over the news production process with their users, the users who are becoming more and more actively involved in the creation of content. This could not only result in increased use of user-generated content by journalists, but it could also stimulate collaboration between professional and amateur journalists. In other words, Paulison says, journalism will fundamentally shift from a top-down lecture to an open conversation. Many bloggers look upon mainstream media as arrogant, an exclusive club that puts its own version of self-interest and economic survival above the society's responsibility of a free press. Conversely, many traditional journalists are dismissive of participatory journalists, characterizing them as self-interested, unskilled amateurs who don't subscribe to the institutional standards of fact-checking, fairness, balance, and objectivity. Sheila Lennon, a features and interactive producer for Projo.com, the website for the Providence Journal in Rhode Island in America, says that collaborating with the audience can make for better reporting, especially when sources contact me out of the blue, she says. because they feel they know me from the web blog and choose to trust me with their news. Voice and personality are also key hallmarks of participatory media. Several observers have argued that the informal style found in many participatory forms free the writer from the official voice of the media company. And that, they say, makes for better storytelling. The official voice of journalism, they say, is usually formal, often drained of color and attitude, and written as an objective and balanced account. In contrast, weblogs and discussion groups thrive on their vivid writing, controversial points of view, and personality-rich nature, traits that many readers find compelling. Clay Shirky is an author and associate teacher at New York University. In his 2009 essay, Newspapers and Thinking the Unthinkable, Shirky points out that a great deal of audience participation involves voluntary efforts motivated by human desires to do things that make us happy, not just things that make us money. He says the shock of inclusion is coming from the outside in, driven not by the professionals formerly in charge, but by the former audience. It is also driven by new entrepreneurs, the men and women who want to build new kinds of sites and services that assume, rather than ignore, the free time and the talents of the public. What most traditional journalists fail to understand is that, despite a participant's lack of skill or journalistic training, the internet itself acts as an editing mechanism. The difference is that editorial judgment is applied at the edges, frequently after the fact, not in advance. In this information ecosystem, citizens rely on each other to report, distribute, and correct a story as it goes. And I know there's no way you can read all of this. This is an artist's interpretation of where we are with media today. And if you want to take a look at his website, it's hidden over here. www.birgerking.net. Burger King with an I. BurgerKing.net. A story is no longer fixed by deadlines or distribution schedules. Rather, it is organic, spiraling through multiple forms of media, changing as it goes.